Good evening, friends. This Halloween week, I bring you a technique refresh, whites, grays, and a mad scientist. We're going to revisit coloring white with Copic markers. I will link you to this video at the end. But we are going to color it with a mad scientist perspective, using our C's, N's, T's, and W's to color this image. But first, we shall use the Big Ugly. This is a stamp positioner called a Big Ugly, and it comes with this L-shaped bracket and 2 acrylic blocks. We shall stamp on a piece of scratch paper with Memento ink our little mad scientist, simply for positioning. We stamp him here, and I can't keep up this silly persona anymore, so I'm going to go back to normal talking. I'm stamping this on my scratch paper so that I can position the little bottle. I want that in the exact spot in his hand, and I'm going to have to do some masking to make it happen. So I'm going to take the smaller block. These 2 acrylic blocks are really thin and the big L block is thick, and I just press that down. Once I have it in place, I'm going to test it by stamping it on the scratch paper to make sure it all lines up. So if I put this block right in the corner and that paper's in the corner, everything should, if all things are equal, come out just perfect, and that is exactly where I want it, with his little thumb holding right onto the end of the bottle, and then those 3 fingers have to be out in front, and I'm going to show you how I do that. First, I need to clean off this stamp because I just stamped it in the black ink and there's just a little haze, and I need to clean that off. So I'm going to use the Absorber. This thing I got off of Amazon, and it's pretty cool. It's damp inside of this little tube. And you can take out the whole sheet and cut off a piece. That's what I did, so that I keep the rest of it in this little sucker. And you can just keep re-wetting the piece that's out. You can wash it in the washer, because it does get pretty black after you use it a lot, but I find it's easier to just throw it away once it gets too black and cut off another piece. It's not expensive stuff. So I clean this off, and this thing cleans off every last bit of black ink. It's really wonderful. Now we have the Memento ink on the little fingers, and I'm just going to clean off that one dangling finger down there because part of that is going to be behind the bottle that he's holding. So I'm going to stamp just the fingers first. So I'm going to line that up, pop those fingers down there, and then I need to mask those off so that they don't get covered when I stamp the bottle. So I've already got my mask cut, and I'll place it down there. I like to use this masking tape. It's a Post-it product, and it's 2 inches. It's on this huge roll that lasts like forever and a day. And so I've already got my mask cut. I'll stamp my little bottle, and that landed exactly where I want it to. Now I'll mask off the bottle so I can stamp the rest of the mad scientist on here, and he should line up just perfectly since I've done all this planning. This is a great way to do multiples of something too, is to set up blocks like this, and then you can do a whole bunch of these at once and then save them for coloring later if you want. Now this is the image and the way we're going to be coloring it with all these different grays, and this is my little basket with all the grays in it, and I have some random bees in there. I don't know how they got in there, but they're playing nicely with my grays for the moment. So I'm going to start off by coloring his skin tones and his glove with the W markers. These are the warm grays, so they're the ones that are going to look the most brown. In this video, I apologize, the color really got blown out because I have this black background behind it, I think, and all of these colors are so light that the color just didn't pick up. So it looks like I'm hardly putting any color down, but that's a W4 and a W2. That should be plenty of color there. And yeah, unfortunately, it looks like there's hardly anything there. But I will flash back and forth to the close-up image in between, so you can start seeing. I want you to keep your eye on each of the sections we're coloring and note the type of gray that they are. So this skin tone is going to be the warmest out of all of them. Most people only need a warm and a cool gray set. They don't need the T's and the N's in the middle, but I'm going to show you what they look like anyway. So next we're going to do the ends for his jacket. The ends are the neutrals, and they're the most gray. So if you want something that's really a true gray, that's typically the marker that you would lean toward, because there's not really a whole lot of blue content in them. They're not really brownish. They're just plain old gray. And you'll see the difference between this and the cool grays in just a few minutes. So I'm just coloring the shadows. The light's coming from the upper left, so I'm putting all my color on the right-hand side and just blending it out. And you can see now, look at the face compared with the jacket, and you can definitely see the warmth and then the really neutral jacket. Now this is the cool gray on the hair, and if you know anything about a C5 marker, this is so light. My goodness, these things blew out. So I did color the base tone on this, the C5 first, and now I'm just going to draw in mad hairs because he's a mad scientist. And I'm going to just draw in lots of crazy wild hair, kind of following the direction of each of these curves that his little wild hair is in. And that's with my C9, and his shoes will also be the cool gray. And then I'm going to add C7, and I'm just going to add more lines. Now, some people would say my stuff looks like a hot mess for a while, and this is one of those places where it definitely looks like a bit of a hot mess. But in just a few minutes, you'll see how I bring that back around. A lot of times, if you add a lot of contrast in your darks and then you go over it one more time with your light colors, it allows all that detail to kind of sit in there without really losing a lot of it. And this still does look very, very light. In a second, you're going to see what it really looks like in real life. And look how dark and rich that is. And it's got a little bit of a blue tint to it compared to the other two grays. So now we're going to look at the T's. Well, we're not really going to look at the T's because you can't see much here. But the T's are the toner grays, and they're a little more toward the warm side. They're not as warm as the warm grays, but they're a little warmer. And so I'm going to color his pants and the liquid in his little science jar, his little beaker, in the toner grays. And again, as I said before, most people can make do just fine with warms and cools and not really have to worry about anything else and getting those other colors. So next I'm going to use some warm gray to give him a shadow under his feet, and it thins out a lot to the left because his hand is much thinner than his body, so you want a thinner shadow out there. And I've taken the lightest of each of my T, N, W, and C markers, and I'm just making these bubbles coming up from the little bottle. But I decided midway that I actually wanted to also have just a little puff of smoke. So I took the stamp. There's puffs of smoke, there's explosions, there's all different kinds of things you can make come out of the bottle in the Paper Smooches set. So now I'm going to use my Copic multi-liners and my Signo pen, and then I have a random Pentel pen in there. Links to all this in the doobly-doo. I'm going to go over some of the lines. There's some spots where I can just tighten up some of that. Places where my stamping didn't stamp all the way, because I'm a bad stamper. I keep saying that. It's kind of funny that I make so many cards and I can't stamp worth a darn. So to assemble my card, I'm rounding the corners of my top fold card base. I'm going to put some of the Precious. Look how small the Precious is. This dimensional adhesive, link in the doobly-doo. And I'm going to pop that onto the front of the top fold card. And then I'm going to put my sentiment on the inside of the card. And I want to use this smaller sentiment along with this little teeny tiny mouse. And so I'm going to mask out the mouse. And all I have to do is stamp him on a little tiny sliver of that paper. And so I've got that already on there, so all I have to do is stamp my sentiment, and it can kind of peek behind him just a little bit. And I can pull that mask off and then color my little mouse. I'm going to color him in the warm grays. And now, friends, I bring you the completed card. Our mad scientist gazes gleefully at his concoction, dreaming of the effect that it will have, wreaking havoc around the world. And inside, his little cohort, this adorable little mouse that I think is hilarious. I hope you guys enjoyed this refresh feature. If there's a video you'd like me to readdress at some point, let me know in a comment in the doobly-doo. And in the meantime, check out the original Coloring White video on the left or the spooky spotlight video on the right. And I will see you next time. And because you stayed tuned to the end of this video, a coupon code for you, 25% off Copic Markers until November 14th, 2014, link in the description.